10 million illegals that are here today and made them full participants in the work program, why is it then necessary to follow up with citizenship?
Because we found that in foreign countries, that if someone is living in a country and has no chance of attaining citizenship, over time they will be separated from that society and there will be enormous problems. In France today, there are people who are Muslims who are living in ghettos around Paris. You might have noticed that a few weeks ago they rose up and burned thousands of cars. We have found in the European experiment where they do not have an opportunity to earn their citizenship under any circumstances, that leads to a radicalization of that society. And that's just my view on that issue. Yes, sir. Oh, and then, I'm sorry. Then, yeah. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Senator, Jim Lawless is my 26 years naval aviator. Last work for Gus Kinnear, Tom Copeland. The bill that you and Senator Kennedy have put forward,
and the President,
talk about a southern border study being required, and I believe it has to be 14 points have to be studied before the construction of the fence.
No.
Can you clear me up?
Yes, sir. One of the things that's been brought up about this is somehow we would have to have the Mexicans' permission. The only thing we want to do is make sure that the money is spent in the most efficient fashion. For example, there are many people that believe that all you need to do is build a border, a wall, all the way across the border, and that does it. There's other experts, in fact, the majority of experts, that believe in the trackless areas, particularly like in Arizona, you could use UAVs, sensors, radars, vehicle barriers, and it would be more efficient. I think we're all in agreement that in the populated areas, you're going to have walls and barriers, barricades, in the heavily populated areas. In the more desert areas, you could save money and use it for, say, hiring more border patrol or other more efficient uses. So we need to have studies as to what the best use of the money is, but we're spending the money right now and building more walls and hiring more border guards and more facilities to house these people who aren't from Mexico that are going to have to be transported back to the country that they came from. But in no way was that intended in any way to hold up what's going on right now. And we're going to spend billions. It's going to cost billions of dollars. And that's not even talking about our northern border, where, as you know, the 9/11 people came across, as well as recently they arrested some people that had been to Atlanta. So we've got a northern problem also. But let's be very candid about it. The northern border, we don't have corruption on the northern side of the border. As you know, there's not the problems of enforcement on the northern side of the border, although there isn't nearly as much as perhaps we would want quite right.
I took your advice and worked for the local constable here. If I could just tell the audience a little story about the center.
We are the recipients with drought and 5 degrees warmer temperatures. And I understand that there's an intergovernmental panel on climate change which has made a recommendation that we needed to reduce 60 to 80% our emissions by 2050. And I'm just very curious about your stand on that and whether you support that and are going to vote for it.
That panel, there will not be a vote on it. They're going to issue, that was their point.
And I noticed a lot of conflict between agencies. J.D. wrote a book recently about whatever it takes in dealing with immigration, and he points out in that there are significant issues in things like IRS, Customs, and all these federal agencies, the Social Security, and they won't tell each other. And we have the IRS giving individual numbers to illegals in order so they can file taxes. Yep. Is that something that you guys, that the Senate is going to change and address?
It's a serious problem. Before you stop, and I agree with you, that's a serious problem. How did you feel about this young man's proposal about using local authorities and police to...
The last 5 years I spent in property, dealing with property crimes.
Mm-hmm.
There has been a significant increase in the number of suspects that I dealt with that were illegals, considerably, 70% or better. And I agree that we need to be able to have that type of response. Texas recently, they had an incident down there in one of the border towns where that local sheriff began imprisoning the illegals as they came across the river, across the border, and put them in prison for 3 to 4 months. They've had a decrease in the number of people coming across the border.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Dave Sprinkle. God bless you, sir.
Thank you.
We really honor your service and stuff. My 3 brothers and I were in Vietnam. Ladies and men serving in our country, and we...
Here in the United States without our knowledge. Say that again. Can you comment on Al-Qaeda's ability to place personnel here in the U.S. and organize and recruit until someone gives them the word to do something?
I am not privy to top secret or classified information. It is my view that if you have broken borders, that why not, would there not be the capability of Al-Qaeda to place people in this country? That's why this issue is of the utmost importance, and border security is our first and foremost responsibility. We do know, as you know, that 3 people came from Canada to Atlanta. We do know that 2 of the people came across the Canadian border in 9/11. But I'll tell you what also bothers me a great deal is what happened just recently down in Florida. Apparently, and it's happened in England and happened in Spain, apparently some of these cells are now homegrown. Get on the internet, they haven't been to Pakistan, they haven't been to Afghanistan. They get together in chat rooms and they sort of stoke each other, and they become dedicated to this cause, and that is really a worrisome element. But in answer to your question, I have no information about it, but I don't see how it would be logical to assume that it wouldn't be the case. Thank you, sir. Could we do about 3 more, and then I'm going to have to drive back to Phoenix. This lady all the way in the back, if you could go to her. Yes, ma'am. And then we'll go.
And I just wanted to express my point of view. I have a lot of friends who are legal immigrants as well. We married full Americans and we're very happy. But the thing that I think about with amnesty, it's a slap in the face to the people like myself who jump through all the hoops, pay the immigration fees, sit in the INS offices for 5 hours on end, do the medical screenings. It goes on and on. It just enrages us that a lot of people will be able to kind of skip that process, and what makes them more special than us?
Well, again, I don't know if you were here when I explained our proposal. I am against amnesty, but I believe that we've got to do something with the 11 million people who are here, and I think the options are, as I described. By the way, about 10,000 Irish who are undocumented, who are working in New York City, descended on our nation's capital last week when I was in session. They're all wearing T-shirts that said legalizetheirish.org. So not all are in agreement with you totally on that issue. I don't believe in amnesty either. We gave amnesty in the 1980s and it didn't work. And I would be glad to consider some kind of program, as I mentioned earlier, that Congressman Pence was talking about, or others. We need to sit down and negotiate it, and I think the President's only position on it is that he's willing to negotiate also, as long as this is a comprehensive advisor and the other mayors and people I just introduced. But just to say a word about the Yavapai partnership. We modeled it in the legislation on the San Pedro partnership. As many of you know, the San Pedro River down in southern Arizona is in danger of going dry. And so we formed this partnership. It has additional people in it because of the fact that Fort Huachuca is there, and they're one of the water users. And so there's probably more federal involvement than perhaps this one is. And I just want to reiterate the principle behind the legislation that we passed was very significant involvement involvement and participation by the elected officials. I don't rely solely on the elected officials, but you represent, you elect